Hello and welcome to episode 14 of Friending the Mirror. I'm Don Shaw. I am a professional speaker. I'm also an author of two books, Facing Up to It, and a book I call Friending the Mirror, which is where the title of this show came from. And I'd like to welcome you again. Today's episode features my friend and mentor, David Roche, and the title of the episode is Facing the Audience. David is an inspirational humorist, a motivational speaker, author, performer. He has transformed the challenges and gifts of living with a facial difference into a compelling message that uplifts and delights audiences around the world. The story of his heroic journey from shame to strength has inspired standing ovations from New Zealand to Moscow, London to Sydney, and across Canada and the United States, including a presentation at the White House. David, I would like to welcome you to my show today. And my first question for you is one that I know that you like to ask your younger audiences. And that is, David, what happened to your face?
Thank you, Dawn. I thought you'd never ask. Oh my God. Okay, what you see on the left side of my face, and it goes down to about my collarbone, is, well, when I was born, they called it a hemangioma. Now, more accurately, it's called a vascular malformation. Basically, veins gone wild. It was just a slight discoloration on my left eyelid the day I was born, and the doctor said, "Don't worry, Mrs. Roach, it will go away in a few days." Well, it's been quite a few days. It hasn't gone away. Thank you, doctor. When I was a year old, the lower part of my face grew into what looked like a bunch of grapes, to hear my father tell it. And I had the first of many surgeries and procedures at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. I had my lower lip and the lower part of my mouth removed, and I had many other procedures, especially radiation therapy. They did not know exactly what they were doing with the radiation therapy. They wanted to shrink the swollen veins, made the lower part of my face stop going, and as a result, I lost all of my teeth. So you can say I was born with this face, but it's been surgically enhanced in various ways over the years. There you go.
So, David, what was the radiation therapy supposed to accomplish? I mean, normally we think about radiation as being associated with cancer and trying to arrest cancer development. But your tumor was benign. So, what can you say again a little bit about what that radiation therapy was supposed to do?
Sure. And just to say, strictly speaking, we wouldn't call it a tumor, we'd call it a growth. Because it's not, it's part of my body that's abnormally enlarged. It's not a different entity in there. You have to go back to answer that question to the 40s and 50s when radiation was a miracle cure and it was everywhere. Believe it or not, they used to give radiation therapy to kids with tonsillitis. My brothers and sisters and I used to go to the department store in our hometown to the shoe department because they had a machine where you could x-ray your own feet. It was a way of like selling shoes. And so we had great fun in there, x-raying our own feet, sticking our hands in there, our elbows, whatever we could get in to x-ray and look at. So what they were doing is, so it was somewhat of a miracle cure. It was the cure of the day. And yeah, they thought that it would the vascular malformation, the veins, from growing anymore. Well, did it? I imagine so. It also kept other things from growing more. And it's impossible to tell from the charting back in those days. And that started for me in 1945 when I was 1 year old. It's impossible to tell how much radiation was used and how they may have targeted it, if indeed they did. And they also placed like little gold pellets filled with radon gas through the left side of my head. So over the years, those have migrated a bit. There's still a couple in there, and you know that whenever there's an X-ray of my whole head, it's kind of a surprise to the physician. What is that? Oh, that's a radon pellet. Oh, a radon pellet? Sure. I'm like Spider-Man, okay? You know, look at me. I'm 71 years old. I'm in good health, pretty much. It's a miracle to me, and so I attribute it to the radiation. Don't try it at home, kids.
Well, I'm going to just add, but you said those pellets are gold plated. So either you're heavy headed, or I don't know. That sounds like a pretty expensive head you got there, David.
There's titanium in there too, just to say, you know. So yeah, I feel like I had a. Sometimes I think my head is basically a museum of diagnosis and procedures to deal with vascular malformations for the last 70 years. It's valuable. I think I could like auction off my head on eBay. Or like I'll leave it to a vascular malformation clinic or something like that.
So I know that you mentioned this was early, like 40s and 50s. How was it for you growing up? I mean, what was your social life like, your family life? How did that work for you during that time period?
You know, kids ask me that kind of question when I present in schools. They ask me that kind of question a lot, like, was I teased? And did your brothers and sisters tease you? Things like that. Um, Basically, I would say I had a very happy childhood. I was, okay, for starters, the day that I was born, my father was a prisoner of war in Stalag 17 in Germany. This was, yes, the Second World War. And I was born into a household with my mom, her two sisters, my grandmother, my grandfather, and Blackie the dog during a time of war, of deprivation, of fear, of loss, and his new life. So I was like King David. So that was actually a good start. And I had lots of good family support. 6 younger brothers and sisters followed over the years. I I basically think that I did pretty well, all things considered. Like, yeah, there they are. Here we are at a family picnic at my father's workplace had. Like those matching shirts for the boys, and there's my sister Kathleen. Um, yeah. So,
Now, were you the youngest?
huh?
Were you the youngest?
The oldest. I'm the oldest.
Oh,
Yeah. So the sense of, and okay, so the other thing, so I had, my family had its dysfunctionalities, but basically it was very loving. And we lived in a place where other families lived, fairly stable, so I was known. I didn't have to like appear as a stranger to people very much. That was good. Church and school. I had a religious upbringing, Catholic, Roman Catholic. That's a mixed blessing, but the positive part of it, one positive part was I was taught that I was a child of God, okay? That I had a soul, and that means my identity was inside myself. And there was never any teasing in my family. Oh, there was teasing in my family, but it was teasing about dropping a baseball or saying something silly or
well,
trying.
you had 6 siblings. Of course, there was going to be teasing.
Yeah, and sometimes it was loving, sometimes not. Yeah, and so I had a good family life. I had a good school life. Teasing was not tolerated at Our Lady of Grace School. It still happened, but it was nipped in the bud. You know, there was good Catholic discipline. Um, so I would say, and I had always had lots of friends. And here's I try to answer the question. You know, I say my face is a gift because I learned to love myself. So the kids ask me, okay, that's fine, but how did that happen? How did you learn to love yourself? And I've been trying to give good answers to that. I think I had the benefits of starting out with a strong family. I had a good upbringing. It was easier then, I think. You know, we were raised by just being pushed out the back door into the neighborhood, and I always had lots of friends there. I'm describing a happy childhood. Teasing, yes, that did happen at times, especially as I headed into middle school and high school. That happened, but I believed I was smart. My mother used to
You
always,
believe you are smart.
yes, um, and actually I was smart. But I believed I was funny. Um, I played sports, so I had these kind of things that were like resources. Even though and we never talked about my face. It just wasn't an issue. You know how you know somebody for a long time and the way they look is fine. That's what happened with me. That changed, you know, as I headed into the pubescence and stuff like that. That was more difficult. Um, so,
Yeah, it was kind of similar. Excuse me, in my family
yeah,
too. I mean, I'm the youngest of three, so I certainly didn't have to contend with quite as many siblings. But I understand. I mean, I have good parental support. But aside from planning the surgeries and whatnot, it just wasn't talked about. My brother, whenever if he made a comment, it was I would tell on him, of course, and my mother would just stop it right there because it just was not acceptable to talk about that, and it was never talked about. It was more ignored, and I'm not sure if that was a good thing or not. What did you find?
I think that's a mixed thing, don't you? I think
Yeah.
that that kind of like, if you can call it denial or you can call it compartmentalization, I think there's a strength to that and a help. But then, as time goes by, if you don't talk about it, then you're not expressing your reality. So when different things would happen, I didn't have a framework for talking about it, but I also recognized that it had a positive aspect too. And it sounds like that was the case for you as well.
Yeah, although I mean, I had a lot of insecurity issues.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, on one hand, my talents were encouraged and that really helped. And I had a lot of adults in my life who were very supportive in helping me develop the creative side. And but I never had a lot of friends. And that could partly have been my own personality.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Um, yeah, it's interesting. We all find out ways to survive and develop. Parents sometimes ask me, parents of kids with facial differences can be very concerned about the kids, and I think in some cases are very overprotective. Uh, my feeling is anybody who enters into middle school and junior high, pubescence, everybody has something that they feel bad about and that they are feasible about. It can be a shirt, shoes, the wrong backpack, you know, the wrong hair, the wrong color hair. People has confided in me so much over the years, and it's always in the context of, oh, when I was a kid, it was difficult. I had a wart on my hand, and the kids said I had cooties, and things like that. There's always something.
Now, do you ever get the questions about, their condition in terms of like, I think people are afraid because they somehow think that whatever we have is contagious. Speaking
well,
of,
um, kids around, I have a couple examples of that. Kids around age 4 and 5, that's the age when they're like tuned into monsters. And so I've had the experience sometimes of a child thinking that I'm a monster, that I'm supposed to live under the bed or in the closet or something like that.
well, what, you mean it's not comfortable in there?
It's actually quite nice sometimes. I like to go under the bed. Yeah. and the other time was yeah, during the AIDS epidemic. I lived in the 1980s. I lived in San Francisco, and with the color of my face on the left side, it can look like Kaposi sarcoma, which was an indication of something that happened when people had AIDS. And so that there was some fear that I might have AIDS. But that was not really prevalent yet. But you could see it in people's faces. Um, but usually well, who knows what's in people's minds? It's so unusual that people don't assume that it's cancerous, but they have all kinds of conjectures. Was it an accident? Were you in a fire? Did you get?
Well, and they assume that all we have to do is go to a surgeon and we're going to get fixed. That
Yeah,
it's like, well, how come you don't have more surgery? It's like, well, there's a lot of reasons.
I think that
So,
they're used to watching reality TV. Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of assumptions like that. Students will ask, well, if you could have an operation to look like normal, would you do that? Um, yeah, no, I don't think I would. Yeah, actually, no, that's not true. If I could try it like for 6 months to look normal, just to see what it's like, I would try that. I'd look like one of my brothers, I guess. That would be fine. Just to try, see what life is like. As long as I could remember everything I've learned from having a facial difference.
yeah, because that's kind of one of my things that I say is that I wouldn't fix it. Now, in a way, I have a cheat. It's easy for me to say that because it's really not possible.
Uh-huh.
Because of the nerve damage and the structural damage, it's not really possible to do.
Yeah. Oh, so,
So I say, and I also, in all honesty, it would scare the heck out of me to look normal. I mean, who wants to look normal, right?
yeah. All the stuff you have to deal with. All the horribleness of looking normal. The boringness.
Well, for me at least, I mean, I actually use my appearance a little bit to my advantage because it helps me to stand out. But the other thing is, it's part of my identity now. I
Uh-huh.
mean, people know me, they see me. If my face completely changed, and speaking of changing faces, actually, we have somebody made a comment about the burn population, and of
Uh-huh.
course, burn injuries often happen later in life. You and I have made what could be considered the advantage of having looked the way we do for our entire lives, and we have adapted in a way because this is all we've ever known. And
Yeah.
yeah, and for people who have an injury in a car accident or a burn injury, all of a sudden they have this change, this new face, this less attractive face thrust upon them.
Yeah, and you know what other advantage we have? Or I should speak for myself. I'm pre-aged. All these cute people, as their faces start to get wrinkles, it's like, oh my God, oh, help me, help me. I said, forget it. You're in my world now.
Well, and actually, that's kind of funny because I have paralysis on this side, so my face really doesn't move.
Uh-huh.
And okay, maybe it's starting to sag slightly, but where there's no muscles, there's no wrinkle lines. Now, unfortunately, the other side has a lot of animation, so gonna make up for it on the other side, I think.
I get it. It's interesting. Yeah, no, everybody's got something. You know, and the people who don't have, say, the quote normal people, and not that anybody is normal, you know, they, especially the ones who are like attractive or cute, they don't know all the benefits they get from being attractive until they start to lose it. And it's like, oh my God, what's happening to me? I'm not cute anymore. Oh well. And so we've dealt with that kind of thing. So we're saved from years of anxiety and anguish. I'm so grateful to be disfigured.
Oh, it was actually kind of funny. I had a young woman who was staying with me for a short time, visiting and helping out with the horses, and she actually is good looking. And we had to go to the like a Verizon store or some phone store, and the guy, it was so obvious that the guy who was helping her he wasn't really hitting on her, but you could definitely see a difference in the way he interacted with her
Oh yeah.
compared to the way he interacted with other customers. And the same thing, I can't remember where else, but we had a similar thing happen in another place. And I'm just like trying not to go into hysterics
Yeah.
because it's actually kind of funny to watch. Of course, people don't do that to me. They kind of treat me the opposite. It's like, oh, do I have to deal with you? No, that's not true. For the most part, I get treated just fairly normally, probably because I expect to be treated fairly normally. Now, I know that you actually had someone say something kind of nasty to you, and I'm sure it's happened more than once, but somebody actually said to you that if they looked the way you did, that they think they might have to kill themselves. And I want to know, how did you react to that, and what sort of answer did you have?
Well, that actually happened twice, and so the first time I didn't know what to say. The second time I went, oh, well, you still can kill yourself. Okay, all right. I didn't really say that. I was just kind of stunned. But the next time somebody says that to me, I'll be ready to say, you still can. Okay?
So, how do you deal with people who act inappropriately? What is your reaction when people stare or when people make comments like that? I mean, aside from the quick, witty comebacks that we come up with an hour later, what is reality?
Um, the reality for me, most of the time at this point, having dealt with this for some years now, is that, and I learned this a lot through getting responses and feedback from being on stage and at the podium, is that the first 5 minutes doesn't count. Uh, I used to think that people were horrified by me, and maybe in some cases they might be, or just shocked, whatever, you know, or judging me. And once I realized that they're just getting used to me, the same as I need to get used to somebody who looks different, then I realized the first 5 minutes doesn't count. First 5 minutes is free looks. It's what happens after that that counts. And now sometimes people say things. Um, and it used to kind of drive me crazy. It's on a continuum, on a range from, oh my God, you're so inspiring, you're so courageous, okay? To the other end is like, oh my God, you have suffered so much, and God has given you a special cross to bear. And it used to irritate me because uh, there's this phrase, inspiration porn now, where people with visible disabilities decry, okay, stop with the inspiration stuff already. I'm not inspirational. Uh, you're just like seeing part of me. It's just part of my reality. You're not seeing the whole person. Um, I've gotten to the place most of the time, and I have my bad days, is like I assume whatever people are saying is they're doing the best they can. Okay? And most of the people who are saying something, oh, you suffered so much, they're coming, okay, maybe you say, oh, okay, it's pity, and I don't want to be pitied, but it's the best they have to offer. So I assume that they're coming from the heart. And that kind of changes things. And I'm not trying to say it's okay to be for other people to be judgmental about my appearance. Certainly not to be cruel or bullying or teasing, but people just come from a variety of places. And the other thing is, once you realize that people who are judgmental are really judging themselves, then it's not so bad. Um, and so I have lots of ways that I deal with it. Some are constructive, some are avoidance. You know, it's like I say, I have my bad days when I just want to go back under the bed, you know. It varies.
So you, like me,
Yes.
have a wonderful long-term marriage. But what was it like for you, like puberty and on into high school, college? How did romantic relationships work out for you? And how did you meet your wife? And I'd like you to tell us a little bit about her.
Well, okay. Heading into adolescence, I spent 4 years in a Roman Catholic seminary from age 13 to 17. And actually, there's a story that kind of predates that. The first seminary that I applied to, I'm 13 years old. I go to the seminary, that is a school that teaches boys to become priests. The seminary is at the University of Notre Dame in South Bend, Indiana. I thought that was cool because that's where they played football. And so I thought, well, I kind of confused football with religion, you know, as many people in the Midwest did.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I can understand that, especially in Seattle lately.
Yes, there is an overlap. Anyway, I told the priest how much I love Jesus and how my Aunt Rose had leaned over in my cradle and said, "This boy is destined to be a bishop," which, you know, happened to just about every Irish Catholic boy in the Midwest at that time. Um, the priest told me that I was too ugly to be a priest. They said that
Did
because,
he use those exact words?
no, they use the words, because of your unfortunate appearance,
Unfortunate.
parishioners would not be able to have any respect for you. But what I heard was you're too ugly to be a priest. And I didn't hear the priest saying that. I heard God saying that. Because the way that I was raised, the priest spoke for God. Kind of like the Pope, only a little Pope. Um, and so you took that seriously. Um, and I, up till then, I had just been, like I said, the child of God thing. I'd been taken care of. The nuns were really, in the whole community of the church was great for me. And then all of a sudden, I'm hearing, you're too ugly to be a priest? What? You know, it's like, WTS, God. You know, why are you saying this? Um, and it was like getting hit by a 2x4. And that colored my attitude a lot. You know, I thought if God saw me in that way as a freak and a monster, and I could not talk about it. I didn't have a way to talk about it. I carried that for quite a while. Even though I ended up in a seminary, in a different seminary. So that sheltered me. I went to an all-male Catholic college in an all-male environment. I didn't have the chance to learn about heterosexual relationships. Um, And so like, and also the truth is I started drinking at that time, and that blunted, um, you know, fears, desires, guilt, all that kind of stuff. And
Now,
that,
did you start drinking as a reaction to basically feeling like you were unworthy? Was that kind of a direct result of what the priest told you?
no, I would not say that. I would say that I grew up in an environment where it was normal to drink. It was normal to drink beer, and then on holidays, the Sacramental Beverage was Canadian Club, but and Seven, Season 7 and things like that. The heavy stuff was hauled out, and I'd start because all the adults were drinking, and I would say my mom was alcoholic, and my brother was alcoholic. Um, but in the working alcoholics, my mom would get up at 6 a.m. and she started working full time from the time that my youngest sister was 5. So a lot of my life that she was working full time with having 7 kids, and it was a stressful life for sure. And at night, she'd get out 2 bottles of beer, two quarts of beer, and drink them while she's watching Jack Tar on the TV and smoking Pall Mall cigarettes, and until basically she was, sort of passed out. So she was a working alcoholic. That was my model. Yeah, you drink a lot, and if you're partying, you drink even more, but you still have to go to work. Anyhow, so that was I would have done, if I looked like George Clooney, okay, but
You might have drunk, especially if you looked like George Clooney.
I'll try it. I'm willing to try it. So, but then I also know that it helped me to cover up, like I say, my fears and doubts. So I had that too. Um, uh, and I had various relationships, but I never talked about my face. When I met Marlene, I married. Okay, I married the first woman I had sex with. She's a wonderful person, but I was really emotionally like a zombie. Okay, has a wonderful daughter, Amy. She's an early education teacher at the University of Indiana, and but it was a first marriage that was like many a starter marriage, is what people call them. I met my true love in my middle years. I had stopped drinking by that time. Okay, that was a key thing, and we met. Marlena and I met when we were both volunteering to give massages to people who were in hospitals in San Francisco, in a particular hospital, Pacific Presbyterian Hospital, and it was during the time of the AIDS epidemic also. So we met and we're both touchy-feely people, and so even though we were very attracted to one another, I never talked about my face for the first 6 months that we were together, but she touched me. She touched me, and I learned to trust her from the touch. Um, Actually, when she first met me, she heard my voice before she saw my face and was very drawn to what I was saying and who I seemed to be. But when she saw me, she was shocked and walked away. But she followed her heart back to me, and actually we're making a film about that. That's the basis of a presentation that we do to the schools called Love at Second Sight, and we've done that. Yeah, there she is. Um, look at her. She's like a trophy wife. Um, no, actually, I'm the trophy, honey. I'm the trophy husband. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Anyway, I kind of lost track of where I'm at right now.
You were talking about the movie.
Oh yeah. We're making a movie called Love at Second Sight, and it's intended. It's going to be about 25 minutes long, intended for kids in middle school.
That's a long movie if it's 25 years long.
Yeah, 25. Did I say 25 years? I mean 25 minutes. Yeah, well, you know, boyhood, that was 25
I
years.
thought maybe you meant it spanned 25 years.
Well, it kind of does in a way. Anyway, we're working on that. But the point that I'm saying is, I didn't talk about my face until I trusted Marlena. I was in my 40s at that time, and I never talked about my face really till I got on stage in my 40s. So it's a long and winding road, Dawn, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah, it's definitely a process getting well used to. I know that one person who also has a facial difference expressed that she didn't like the term getting used to, but it's a reality. I mean, sometimes I have to get used to it when I look in the mirror every day. And when I meet people, I understand that they have to get used to it because like I like the idea of that first 5 minutes. You just kind of have to, throw that out the window
Yeah,
because once you get beyond, I mean, once people get used to what you look like, they don't see it anymore. I mean, my friends always tell me, I don't notice your face. You're just you. But on the other hand, they're not going to mistake me for anybody else in the room. I know that. So I know that you have other projects. You've got the movie, which I think is fabulous. I also know that you wrote a book. And here is the book. It's called The Church of 80% Sincerity. And I have actually read it, but I still am not 100% clear on what you mean by the Church of 80% Sincerity. So if you could share that, I would appreciate it.
What I mean by it is it's the kind of title that attracts people. I came up with it when I was doing improv. I was doing basically improv and speaking spontaneously in a class taught by my friend and mentor Lee Glickstein, and I was talking about being raised Catholic and trying to find, do I have a spiritual home? And I thought, I do have a spiritual home. It's probably in a place called the Church of 80% Sincerity because that's about as much as I can do. And everybody liked the title. So I kept the title, and every time I use it on stage or in the book, people love it. So it doesn't have a lot of meaning, it has a lot of function. That's me on, that's a photo that was taken in Liverpool, England a couple of years ago. Where I was performing there. I really enjoyed that. Liverpool is one of my favorite cities. As I'm doing my show, I mean, that was a shot from the show Catholic Erotica, which is one of my comedy shows. So, I give good title. If you think of Catholic Erotica? What? Wow, that's interesting.
And you're doing another show. I mean, you actually did a stage presentation of the Church of 80% Sincerity, but you're also working on something now, and it's called My Face is Acting Up.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about that? And I actually, do you have a performance coming up, or I can't remember what the date was?
Um, I have one on October 3rd in Vancouver. I'm devoting most of my attention to the film right now. But if people check my website or send me their emails, I'll keep people informed about upcoming things if you're interested.
Yeah, I have David's website. It's posted up on the sticky notes here. It's very easy. It's David Roche, and that's ROCHE.com rather than, we don't want to get that confused with ROACH. He's definitely a ROCHE.
That was how I got teased when I was a kid, having the last name pronounced Roach. Oh, God. That was bad. I'll take facial difference any day over that.
Well, you could always put a mark, put a little mark over the E and just go Roche, David Roche. Wouldn't that have been more romantic?
Yeah, I guess that would have been. Now that I live in Canada, I can do that, I guess.
So, so the movie, when is that going to be? When is your movie going to be done so that we can all see it? And how is it going to come out? Where is it going to be displayed?
Well, I think that we mainly want to be able to do it on the internet, to have it be downloadable or streamable. And like we're going to start the crowdfunding soon, and one of the perks is going to be that if you donate a certain amount of money, then you can, you know, we can download the movie to your to the school that you, whatever school you want us to send it to.
No, you have not started crowdfunding. You haven't started your crowdfunding yet?
About a month from now, I think we'll be starting it up. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, you know, it's the usual thing, Facebook, email, that kind of thing. I think we'll be using Kickstarter. So, yeah, we'll be definitely asking for help and encouragement on this. No, we haven't started it yet.
Okay, so if people go to davidroche.com, is there a way to sign up for your email list so that they'll get a notification when the pledge campaign starts?
Yep, they definitely can do that. They can do that. And soon there'll be an actual website only for the film, too. So, but you can get that to davidroche.com. And my email is david@davidroche.com, so you can email me that way. Love to hear from you. Thank you for asking about that, Dawn. And something I was very excited about.
Well, and that is one of the things. I mean, I have so many fabulous people come on the show, and they're doing pretty amazing projects. And so it's not about trying to sell something or anything like that. It's really about being able to share just some of the wonderful projects that people have going on and the activities that they do, because this is all, I mean, you're not, well, maybe a little bit you're doing this for yourself, but you're doing this with the idea that your story is going to be helpful for other people who have physical differences. And that's why it's important to me to make sure that the word gets out there on what you're doing. So I also, at this time, I want to invite people, I mean, should have done it already, but if you have questions for David, by all means, please type it in the chat box and he'll answer it. We're getting close to wrapping up the show. At this point, so there's, any questions, type it in. There might be a delay, so if we don't get to it right away, just be patient and hang with us. Also, David, here's a question that I ask all of my guests. If there was somebody in need, either someone with a physical difference or who was just feeling insecure about themselves, what is an action item? What is one thing, one step that you could suggest to someone to take in order to start improving how they feel about themselves or their impression of their life in general?
That's such a great question. I don't think I have one prime step for that. When I try to answer that for audiences, particularly for kids, I think that the best thing to do, a good thing to do, is to make a list of your resources. For example, what are you good at? Are you good if you're in school? Are you good in school? If you're an adult, are you good at work? What are your good qualities? Are you kind? Are you thoughtful? Do you have a sense of humor? Who are the people who love you? Who are the people who are your allies? Excuse me.
Yeah, it's so easy for us to say kind things about other people. Like I could talk for a while about how great I think David is and all the wonderful things he does. But when you turn it around and you want to try to do that for yourself, people just seem to want to freeze up. And it's not that they don't think there's anything good, or maybe they don't. Maybe a lot of people just don't see. And if that's the case, ask somebody else. Have a
Yeah.
friend or a family member who you like and who likes you tell you. And then don't just shrug it off. Write it down. And what did you think of that?
I think that's a great idea. And that's just something you have to pay attention to. Yes, ally is the word that is used nowadays for having someone who can remind you how awesome you actually are. Yeah, and if you isolate and you just keep it inside yourself, you're going to lose it. And there's also, you know, you can get a counselor, you can have a therapist, but friends do the job for you. So yeah, I suggest doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, there's really nothing wrong with seeking help when you need it from a professional. And if you, if the first person you decide to go see doesn't work out for you, then find somebody else because there's a lot of people out there and they have different styles.
And let me mention About Face International
Oh,
has
absolutely.
adult call-ins and conference calls. So you can make that connection with other people who you know are going to share your experience. It's About Face International at aboutface.com, and they have great people there. You know that, Dawn, yeah.
Yeah, no, About Face is awesome. It's a Canadian organization. We don't really quite have anything like it here in the States. There's a few places, but not any place that's as proactive as About Face has been. And I can tell you, I mean, David's already given his age. He's 71. I'm going to be turning 49 soon. And when we were growing up, we didn't have these kind of resources. We didn't have the social media to make these connections. It was hard. We just didn't really see a lot of people that had differences, or at least facial differences. And so there was a certain sense of isolation because of that. And it's not that we ever believed, well, we're the only ones. But I tell you, when you can interact with people who share the same experiences. I mean, this is why I love having conversations with David. I call him my friend and my mentor, and I mean that in every sense of the word. It's so wonderful to be able to talk to people that we have something in common with. And I mean, because other people who look normal, just don't quite understand.
Yeah.
So, David, before I close my show and talk about my next episode, which is also going to be amazing, I wanted to give you a chance. Do you have any closing comments, any thoughts, anything you wanted to say?
Two things. One is to just follow up on what you were just saying that if you're coming to grips with the challenge of a facial difference or anything like this, uh, if you go on the internet, you'll find an organization that of people with the same thing as you, like the Phoenix Society for Burn Survivors, the Mobius Syndrome Foundation, which has that cleft palate connection. You will definitely find people with good hearts and similar experiences. So I encourage you to do that. Beyond that, I just want to say thank you. I do feel, Dawn, that when you talked earlier about it's not just about my movie or your books, it's about a movement. One of the great things that has happened in my lifetime is that like people like you have appeared in my life. When I first started doing this, even 25 years ago, 26, 27 now, you know, I was kind of on my own, and it's wonderful to make these connections with other people. It is a movement. It's not just people with facial difference. It's around body image. It's around gender-related things. It's about accepting yourself and other people for who you are. So I thank you, Dawn, for the part that you're playing in this. You're a pioneer, and I appreciate you a lot. And I thank you for bringing me onto the show.
Well, thank you so much, David, for agreeing to come on. And I tell you, I just have met some of the most amazing people. I mean, I knew you before I started the show, but a lot of the people who are my guests, I have made a connection with because I wanted them to be on the show. And I learned so much from each person about their situation. And you were talking about how the web, you can find people that have your situation. Well, I'm probably not going to find the teratoma survivors group. However, for me, it's enough to find the facial differences group. And I've actually become much more interested in connecting with people who have other kinds of differences. Because I think, again, we share a commonality. And I don't consider it to be, in my case, a disability, but there are some who do. And that's okay too. But people, there's just this community and this movement. And I'm seeing a few comments. Yes, you know, somebody, Katie is saying, thank you, David, for appearing on my show. So just echoing that I'm also very grateful that you came on. In fact, my next guest, and I really don't, I try to spread out the different types of differences and situations, but my next guest is a man by the name of James Partridge. And he'll be on my show August 4th.
Don't
And
miss it.
because,
Don't miss it. James is great. He's like a leader, a world leader. That's wonderful you have James on.
yeah, I'm really excited.
I got excited there.
Yeah, and David, you have to join us.
I will.
But no, James is amazing. I mean, James is a burn victim who basically used his own recovery process to say, all right, well, this is what people need to know about changing faces. Literally changing faces, going from a normal, I think he was 19 at the time, year-old face to having a face that just radically changed in a matter of moments.
Yeah.
And because of his response to this book, he formed a nonprofit organization in the United Kingdom called Changing Faces. And so he is literally a world leader in facial difference advocacy and just trying to make life better for people with facial differences.
And you know
So,
what?
and because of David, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, as things change for people with facial difference, they change for everybody. Because one of the things I've learned is that everybody feels that they're facially different. Or it's not everybody feels there's something wrong with the way they look or with something inside them. So as we struggle and activate ourselves and others for acceptance, it's a universal phenomenon. It's about being a human being. Enough preaching, sorry.
No, yeah, it's fabulous. I mean, that's why I have you on the show because you just have such a great message for people.
Yeah.
So anyway, I wanted to say that James's webinar, because of the extreme time difference, is going to be on Tuesday, August 4th, but it's going to start at 10:30 Pacific time, which is 1:30 Eastern time and 6:30 p.m. British Standard Time, or summertime, sorry. James is actually giving up part of his evening to be on this webinar with me. And we'll be talking about his own personal story. We'll be talking about all the wonderful things that Changing Faces does. And we're going to address terminology, specifically around the word disfigurement, because that's a real strong one for me. So it's going to be a very interesting, educational, and James is just very well spoken, very well educated, and he just does such great things. So I'm super excited to have him on.
Right.
And so for the rest of you, for everyone out there, remember, it's important to be kind to other people. Whether they have differences or not, it doesn't matter. Be kind to other people. But also, do not forget in the course of things that you also need to be kind to yourself. And I'm stalling a little bit because I have this wonderful little piece of music that I play at the end that has a tendency, my device has a tendency to reset. So, like, oh, wait, I have to find my song again before I can end the show. So again, I hope to see you on August 4th, joining me and James at 10:30 a.m. Pacific. You can look on my website for registration information. And until then, remember, I'm a professional speaker and I've written a couple of books. And also pay attention to the song because it's like really totally cool.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
We are love, we are one. We are how we treat each other when the day is done. We are peace, we are war. We are how we treat each other, nothing more. We are how we treat each other, nothing more. We are how we treat each other.